Okay, so are you ready to dive deeper into Christmas in Connecticut?
Yeah.
Like way deeper than just like watching it for the, the feel-good holiday
All
vibes.
right.
We're gonna we're gonna unpack this movie like it's a historical document,
Uh,
a time capsule, and see what's going on.
okay.
So we're using an episode of the Retro Rewind podcast called
Yeah.
A Recipe for Romance, Christmas in Connecticut,
Right.
as our guide. And I think it's going to be really interesting.
Absolutely.
Um, so one thing that really stood out to me was how Christmas in Connecticut isn't just, a cute Christmas romance.
Mm-hmm.
It came out in 1945, right in the thick of post-World War II America.
Right.
And it really reflects that moment in history.
Absolutely.
So what can you tell us about that era and how the film kind of captures the mood of the country?
Well, you really have to kind of put yourself back in time, right? Like, think about it. This country is just emerging from years of like global conflict.
Yeah.
You have families who've been separated for years. You have, traditional gender roles that have been totally upended while the men were off fighting.
Yeah.
And this just massive collective uncertainty about the future.
Right.
What's going to happen next? What does the world look like now?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And I think in that kind of environment, people were really craving, comfort,
Yeah.
familiarity, and return to like traditional values.
Those good old days.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I think you see that longing reflected in the film itself. Right?
Oh, totally.
The idyllic farmhouse, the image of Elizabeth as like the perfect homemaker,
Mm-hmm.
it all kind of speaks to that desire for stability and domestic bliss.
Right. And the movie really plays into that, like, that whole idea of like home and hearth
Right.
and everything being, perfect and beautiful.
Exactly.
And you were saying about like the shift in gender roles during the war.
Mm-hmm.
So how does Christmas in Connecticut kind of fit into that?
Well, think about it. During the war, a lot of women had stepped outside their traditional roles.
Yeah.
They were working in factories supporting the war effort.
Right. Rosie the Riveter.
Yeah, exactly. And then the war ends, and there's this sort of societal pressure for women to like go back to the home,
Right.
embrace the image of the happy homemaker,
Mm-hmm.
even if it meant like sacrificing some of the independence they had gained.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
And Christmas in Connecticut kind of plays into that tension, right?
Totally.
You have Elizabeth, who's pretending to be this domestic goddess.
Right. Yeah.
But in reality, she's a single, career-driven woman living in a tiny apartment.
Yeah, she can't even boil water.
Exactly. And that contrast between, like, her fabricated persona and her real life,
Yeah.
that's what makes the film so interesting.
It's so true.
It speaks to the anxieties and aspirations of that time period.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think it even speaks to our own anxieties today.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
Right. Think about social media.
Yeah.
The pressure to present a perfect, curated image of ourselves.
Oh, totally. It's like Elizabeth is like the original Instagram influencer.
Right.
Like crafting this aspirational lifestyle.
Exactly.
That's totally fake. But there's also this element of like, empowerment almost.
Ooh, yeah.
Like she's in control of her narrative, even if it's based on a lie.
It is a lie, but I see what you mean. Yeah.
It raises these really interesting questions about authenticity and self-invention.
Yeah.
And those themes are arguably even more relevant today than they were back then.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about all this, like, deep stuff, but, like, let's not forget.
Yeah.
This is a really entertaining movie.
Absolutely.
Like, Barbara Stanwyck, she's just brilliant.
Oh, she's fantastic.
She brings this incredible energy and wit to Elizabeth. Even when she's, like, scheming and lying.
Right.
You can't help but like her.
Mm-hmm. And Sidney Greenstreet as her boss.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah.
He adds this wonderful counterbalance.
Yeah.
Sort of like this grumpy but lovable authority figure.
Yes, I love him.
Did the podcast talk about the actress at all? They did. Yeah, they talked about how the chemistry between Stanwyck and Greenstreet is like
Yeah.
one of the reasons why the movie is so successful.
Right?
It's that like push and pull dynamic
Hmm.
that keeps you engaged. And they also talked about the visual comedy.
Oh, yeah.
Like there's that scene where she's trying to cook this elaborate Christmas dinner.
Yes.
And everything that could go wrong goes wrong.
It's a disaster.
And it's just pure slapstick.
Yeah.
And it just perfectly underscores like the gap between
Mhm.
her curated image and her actual ability.
Oh, exactly.
Oh, I love that. I got to rewatch that scene.
Yeah, it's so good.
It's really funny.
Yeah.
So it seems like Christmas in Connecticut really strikes that perfect balance between like
Yeah.
witty social commentary and like heartwarming holiday cheer.
It does. And it's interesting to consider the film's release alongside another holiday classic from the same year,
Oh, yeah.
It's a Wonderful Life.
Wow, yeah.
Both of these movies came out in 1945, and they offer these really fascinating glimpses into the American psyche of the time,
Yeah.
but in very different ways,
Right.
right? Like, It's a Wonderful Life focuses on small town values,
Mm-hmm.
the importance of community,
Right.
whereas Christmas in Connecticut is tackling these themes of identity,
Yeah.
social expectations, the allure of reinvention, all wrapped up in this comedic package.
That's such a good point.
Yeah.
It's like even though it was this time of like national unity,
Right.
post-war, everybody's kind of like coming together,
Mm-hmm.
there were still all these like anxieties and different perspectives.
Absolutely. And it speaks to the power of cinema to reflect and explore those complexities,
Mm-hmm.
even within like a seemingly lighthearted holiday film.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so to recap, we have a film that speaks to post-war anxieties,
Yep.
explores the gap between image and reality,
Mm-hmm.
offers like some sharp social commentary,
Yes.
and still delivers a lot of charm and humor,
Right.
all anchored by these amazing performances. No
Yeah.
wonder it's still a holiday favorite.
And here's something to think about.
Okay.
How do you think the story of Christmas in Connecticut would play out in today's world?
Wow.
With the added layer of social media and influencer culture.
That's a really good question.
Right. Would Elizabeth's whole, like, fake it till you make it strategy even work?
Yeah.
Or would the pressure to be authentic be even more intense?
Oh my gosh, would she get canceled?
Right.
Like, would she be exposed as a fraud, or would she be able to like
Yeah.
leverage it all into some big brand?
Right.
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
So Christmas in Connecticut,
Mm-hmm.
it's delightful holiday escapism,
Right.
but it's also making us think about identity, ambition, and connection,
Right.
things that are still relevant today.
Absolutely. Great movie.
Great movie.
Love it.
Yeah.